Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And we're here with great friend Dan Griffith from Greater Gain Group. How are you, Dan?
Doing great. Glad to join you today.
It's so wonderful. And, our audience are companies that are expanding in the US. Many are international companies expanding, some are US born and growing here. And you and I are kind of built from the same cloth. We have the same haircut, but
Yes.
we're all about revenue, all about revenue. And so, I'd love to, your company, Greater Gain Group, is all about helping companies drive revenue. But do you mind just sharing a little bit about your company before we hop into our core topics?
Sure. So at Greater Gain Group, we focus specifically on go-to-market, and we do that through a methodology that has essentially three kind of tiers. The first is determining the ICP, the ideal customer profile, for clients that are coming to the U.S. We focus primarily on healthcare, financial services, banking, and insurance. That's not to say we don't work in other markets, but those are markets where we have deep expertise. So when they exit that, they have an ICP playbook that they can go out and execute independently. And our second step is working with them to run a marketing and outreach engine. So we build that for them, we run that for them for 90 days, and then we hand that off to them at the end. And the third step is building a marketing and sales process that is repeatable and scalable with clear entry and exit criteria for each step that can then be put into a CRM and shared with investors and board members. And when they exit those three steps, they should be ready to hire their first US salesperson. We also do some fractional CRO and advisory work and some other one-off things, but that's the core of what we do at Greater Gain Group.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, thinking about companies that are expanding in the U.S., and obviously we both see companies that sort of do well and expand quickly, and those that struggle more. But as you see companies, where are the places where companies, if they're going to struggle, really do struggle?
I think really two areas that I see, and it's funny you ask this question because I was just doing some writing on this topic yesterday and trying to come up with like maybe two or three, but the two that I think I see the most, number one is spending money in the market before they really understand the market. I think sometimes companies say, oh, I'm going to hire somebody that has deep experience in the US market and sales or in marketing. And they work for a big company that's one of my competitors, and they're going to be successful because they'll figure it out. And that very rarely, if ever, happens. I know that because I was one of those people that was hired, 15 years ago to do that, and I learned a lot of hard lessons doing that, and what needed to be there, and what wasn't. So I think that's one. I think the second one is a misunderstanding of the market. We see this probably the most in healthcare because in the U.S. market, we're not a single payer system, meaning that the government isn't the only payer. And so a lot of times clients come from the European market and say, oh, we're going to go after government approval, and we're going to try to sell either through to governmental agencies or even just to healthcare providers, when the ecosystem is so much deeper and wider than that. It can include, insurers, self-insured companies, other tech companies, wellness programs. So that's just a vertical specific example, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of kind of the complexities of the U.S. market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm hearing is not just the complexity, but the full opportunity of what.
Right.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes much larger than what they think it is. I mean, we had a client recently that literally, was walking away from about a $48 billion total addressable market that they didn't realize was even there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was great news to be able to deliver that to them,
Right.
and great news to the investors. But yeah, could I add a third one on here?
Please.
Bill. I think the third one is overspending or giving up ownership to enter the U.S. market. And I don't think either one of those are necessary. We talk a lot about being capital efficient. I think that's really important to do that. And I think it's also really important to not dilute your equity just to enter the U.S. market, because that can be a huge mistake. And I think those are two of our kind of cardinal rules that we say we have at Greater Gain Group is, we're not going to dilute your equity, and we're going to be very capital efficient.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. So going back to your first one, sort of about the kind of hiring too early or spending, too early on the biz dev side. And, one of the, as you were talking, I was thinking about a metaphor we often share is, sort of, I guess when we think about a salesperson, we kind of think of them as, somebody who, you want to drive a car, and ideally they're on a road with no stoplights, with no friction, right? You want them on a, road with, lines painted on it in a really fast car, driving with little impediment. And the problem is, if you kind of hire a person to come in with kind of no asphalt laid down, no white lines, no car built, they
Right.
they arrive and they go, well, I have to build a car and I have to build a road. I don't know how to do that, right? I'm a car driver.
Right.
And so and maybe this is kind of what you found when you were put in that position. I think the way we kind of think of it is, as executives, our job is to enable our people to be successful, and in order to do that, we can't we can't put a house painter in building a house, right? It's a different. We need to align kind of skills with the role, and but it's a different person that builds the car than drives the car, for sure. But I love that. So those three, those are really strong. And so when as you're thinking about kind of the process, and when would you advise a company, or maybe ask a different question: where does the founder sort of or someone from the founding team reside in this sort of initial market entry process? What's their role in the growth plan?
Yeah. So I think I think a lot of the companies that we work, and I'm sure, Bill, the ones you work with are still founder led. They're either seed, Series A, maybe Series B. Could be as late as a Series C or D if they're in med tech, which is a little different. But and many times the founder is still the primary salesperson, and we like to say we help them escape founder-led heroics. But I think the founder being involved is important. I think when you come to the U.S. market, and I think that is whether that role is like a sales role, because some of them are a little more apt to that. I mean, we like to say we help serve up sales conversations, but we want them to have those sales conversations, because two reasons. Number one is they're oftentimes the best person representing the company, but number two, they need to personally understand the market, because they're going to have to translate that back to investors, to a board. So I think that's, if they're sales, but if, they may be technical, so they'd be doing the technical demos and things like that. But again, we really want them to be involved and not hands off, because they do need to understand and be able to communicate that market. So I think I'd say the founder team, and it's oftentimes, like you said, it could be a founder and a co-founder, or, three people. I think all of them need to be integrally involved in having the conversations. Now, they don't necessarily have to do a lot of that pre-work. I mean, that's what we do with them. But I think they can't just set it and forget it. To me, that would be somebody that would be more of a lifestyle company. We would call, hey, they're just, they're maybe not serious about this being something that they're, betting the future on.
What I might even add a third item to your kind of list of, right, they know how to address sort of overcome the objections. They need to hear kind of what the customer wants. Yeah. Something we've experienced as well, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is you're going to learn as you have those initial customer conversations. So that may edit whether it's the product or service. It may edit, how we communicate. So maybe it's the website or marketing materials or whatnot. And at least our experience has been those changes don't happen if it's either somebody who they've hired who doesn't have trust yet, or a third party. And none of us are ever at the water cooler with the people that are going to make those changes, where one of the founders will periodically be at the water cooler and will be sitting at people's desks and will have the credibility to sort of make those changes internally. And I think that, at least our experience is, that's less thought about, but it really can hamstring the evolution, the iteration of the company to being successful in the US. But I don't know if you've seen that as well.
No, I think it's a great ad, because they need to hear that firsthand. And again, of course, they need to be able to action. It's the same thing as you think about as we try to find qualified sales prospects, right? We want somebody that can make the decision and write the check, right? Ultimately.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same way is true with founders being involved with that sales process.
Yeah. Okay. So one last sort of lightning round question. And so we've been just talking about these, amazing founders who've come in and they've created success in the US. And we've all worked with sort of a broad continuum of those that have been really successful to those less so. When you think about the ones that have been most successful that you've had the pleasure of working with, what are common attributes? What do they do different, would you say?
It's one of the things that we've learned in trying to find customers for Greater Gain Group, and that is we want somebody that's going to be coachable. I've coached sports for a long time, have kids that have played sports in college, and having a coachable athlete to me is it's the most wonderful thing, because they'll listen to you, right? And if somebody's not going to listen to you and yet you're going to be responsible for the results, that could be a difficult relationship. So we really look for somebody that's coachable and that's willing to make a change, right? So I think being coachable is one. I think being intellectually curious. I mean, you hear that a lot, but somebody that's a learner, that's a lifetime learner. The folks that have been the most successful in the U.S. market are people that have tried to learn and been open to learning new things. And I'd say probably a third would be somebody that is, I like to say they burn the ships, right? So if they're coming to the U.S. market, they're all in, and they don't leave themselves an easy out. It's not most of my clients are saying, we have to be successful here. I have a client that said, right now we're doing, we want to do 90% of our business in the U.S. and 10% in our country of origin. Right now, it's the opposite, and we have committed to our board to make that flip. Well, they've when we say burn the ships, they've sailed, they burned the ships and said, we're staying, we're gonna get here, we're gonna make a beachhead and make it work. So I think those are the three things that I typically see that bode for great success in the U.S. market. I
love it. No, the first one too, I hear ego is important, but humility is important, right? That we're listening and we're able to take in and value what inputs we're getting. Dan, this has been fantastic. Do you mind if I share your contact details in the description below?
No, that would be perfect. Love to do it. Love to have, like we've always said, Bill, I'd love to have conversations with anybody. That doesn't cost you anything. We'd love to have you reach out, talk about what your problem or challenge is, and see if we can help. And if we can't, maybe get you to somebody that could.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again for taking the time, and really looking forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. Look forward to seeing you soon.